This is the story of the great family, and it's in this book by Jerome Berryman called Godly Play, Volume 2. For this story, you'll use yarn to represent rivers, a block of wood to represent the city of Haran. You've got wooden figures to represent Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, and Rebekah, and then little stones that will be for building the altars. Okay. This is the desert box. So many important things happen to the family of God in the desert that we have to have a piece of it here in our classroom. The desert is a dangerous place. It gets so hot in the daytime that the sun can scorch your skin, and the nights are very cold. There's very little food that grows there, and so you can starve in the desert. And there's very little water, and if you don't find water, you can die of thirst. People do not go into the desert unless they have to. After the great flood, the animals went out again into the four corners of the earth to fill it up again with life. And the animals and the people would gather many times along rivers. And the people would settle in villages and then later would build cities. And one of these large cities was called Haran. The people in Haran believed that there were many different gods. They believed that there was a god for every rock, every tree, every flower, a different god for the sky, a different god for the grass, a different god for everything. But there were two people who believed differently. Abraham and his wife Sarah. Sometimes Abraham would go out to the edge of the desert. And there, God would come so close to Abraham, and Abraham would be so close to God, that Abraham knew what God wanted him to do. And God wanted Abraham and Sarah to move to a new land. And so that is what Abraham and Sarah did. They began the long journey toward the land that God told them to go to. And they took with them their tents, their animals, their servants, and all of their belongings as they made their way on the long journey. And when they came to a place called Shechem, Abraham climbed a hill, and God came near. And so Abraham built an altar to remember that place. And then they continued. And soon, Abraham and Sarah came to a place called Bethel. And again, Abraham prayed to God, and God came near again. And so Abraham built another altar to remember that place. So God was not only in Bethel or Shechem, God was in all the places. Abraham and Sarah continued their journey until they came to the land called Hebron, and there they pitched their tents. At night, Abraham would go out to the edge of the desert. And God would come close to Abraham, and Abraham would be so close to God. And one day, God said to Abraham, I will make you the father of a great nation, and Sarah will become the mother. I will give you so many descendants, as many as the sand on the desert and the stars in the sky. Well, Abraham wondered at this promise because he did not have any children of his own. He wondered, how would this come to be? But Abraham knew that with God all things were possible, and so he trusted that God would keep his promise. And do you know what happened? One day, Sarah became pregnant in their very, very old age, and they were so filled with happiness that they laughed, and so they named their child Isaac, which means laughter in their language. Isaac grew into a man. And Sarah, being old and full of many years, died, and she was buried. And Abraham, though he missed Sarah very much, knew that there was still something important for him to do. He needed to find a wife for his son Isaac. And so Abraham sent his most trusted servant all the way back to the land of Haran. And here, at a well in the land of Haran, the most trusted servant met Rebekah. And Rebekah, full of kindness and wisdom, helped this most trusted servant to water all of his animals, and then she invited him to the home of her mother and father. And so this most trusted servant went to the home of Rebekah and shared with the family about the great family, about Abraham, about Sarah, about Isaac. And Rebekah, she decided that she too wanted to be in this great family. And so she made the decision to walk the journey all the way back in order to join the great family. And when Isaac saw her coming, he went out to meet her in the desert. And then Isaac and Rebekah were married. And then Abraham, also being old and full of many years, he died too, and he was buried next to Sarah. And then Isaac and Rebekah together had children, who then had many children, who then had many, many, many children, and this went on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, until finally your grandparents were born, and then your parents were born, and now you have been born, and now you are part of that great family that God promised so long ago to Abraham, that would be as many as the sands in the desert and the stars in the night sky.